We have an overview today about crops in Oklahoma with Dr. Kim Anderson, our grain marketing specialist. Kim, just kind of give us an overview to start of which crops are produced in Oklahoma.
Well, if you look at USDA NAS, they list the crops as hay. Of course, that's not a planted crop, except for 8% of it, which is alfalfa. Then you have wheat, cotton, corn, soybeans, sorghum. Those are your major crops. Then you have pecans, rye, oats, canola, and I threw in sesame just for the fun of it. And then, of course, we've got some producers with vegetables and fruits.
Let's talk about the most popular crops. Which ones fall into that category?
Well, if you look at their rankings, it depends on how you define that. If you're looking at harvested acres, of course, there's planted acres and harvested acres. Say you've got hay, so that's mostly just harvested, right at 3 million acres. Wheat, the planted acres, the 5-year average is 4.3 million. The harvested is about 6.7 million acres. Soybeans, 580,000 planted, average 5-year average harvested, 555,000. Cotton, 606,000 acres planted. The average harvested is only 477,000. We'll get to that in just a little bit on the risk side of things. Corn, about 348,000 acres planted, 307,000 or 306,000 harvested. If you look at sorghum, it's planted 305,000 and harvested 257,000, somewhere in that vicinity. And that's the ranking if you use harvested acres for ranking them. But if you're using the dollars generated, the gross return, hay's $565 million, wheat's $425 million, cotton's $270 million, corn's $159 million, soybeans $143 million, and sorghum $46 million. And so if you look at the gross income from them, you're going to rank your hay, wheat, cotton, corn, soybeans, and sorghum. If you rank them by harvested acres, then soybeans moves up above corn and cotton.
With all that in mind, how does that translate to the return per acre for each crop?
Well, if you look at the gross return, and that's the numbers we can get from NAS, hay is $189 an acre, wheat's $158 an acre, cotton, $565 an acre, corn, $518 an acre, soybeans $258, and sorghum $180. You've got corn and cotton over $500 an acre there, but those are high cost commodities to produce.
Let's talk about land use now and how things have changed in the last 10 years.
Well, we've had some dramatic changes. If you look at the total acres, we've lost 207,000 acres of cropland. Hay's essentially no change in hay. Wheat, you've lost 1.2 million acres of harvested wheat. It's went from about 3.9 million down to 2.7 million. Soybeans, you've gained about 205,000 acres, going from 350,000 to 555,000. Cotton, you've gained 311,000 acres, big increase in cotton. Corn, only 18,000, a 6% increase, and sorghum, 48,000. But overall, we've lost 8% of our tillable acres over the last 10 years.
Let's talk about risk and which crops tend to be the highest in the risk category.
Now, risk is a hard subject to determine what is the risk, but let's just look at the difference at the planted acres and harvested acres. In other words, how many acres have been abandoned? Hay, essentially nothing. Wheat is 38%, but a lot of that is grazing and haying. Soybeans, you're only abandoned on the average, 5-year average, 4%. Cotton on the 5-year average is 21%. But you look at like 2018, you abandoned 35%, 30% in 19, and if you go back to 2011, you lost 83% of the cotton. A lot of risk there. Corn, 12%, so relatively high risk, yield risk with corn, and sorghum 16%. So you got a lot of risk in your cotton, your corn, and your sorghum.
Lots of numbers today, and producers have to crunch a lot of numbers when they're deciding which crops to go for, correct?
Oh yeah, and we haven't even talked about the cost of production and the risk. We've concentrated today on yield risk, which is greater than price risk.
And for those who have never checked out the USDA NAS website, there's a ton of information there, and you can really drill down on the very most minutia levels, correct?
And they've got it organized where you can get it into spreadsheets and manipulate it so you can get it to tell you some stories.
And present on SUNUP, right?
That's right.
Okay, Kim, thank you very much. Great information. And for a link to the USDA National Agricultural Statistics Service website, we have it for you on sunup.okstate.edu.